Hello, it's ShadeX, and to begin this video, I'll talk about a scary law that was passed called the Lawful Streaming Act. The act was put in a COVID relief bill by Tom Tillis. The fear people have is that streamers could be in serious legal trouble if they play copyrighted music in their Twitch stream. The law supposedly could lead to streamers facing jail time rather than a simple takedown. DMCAs under this law would now be a felony. A lot of YouTubers and streamers are really afraid about this law after hearing news of it. However, the law seems to be aimed at cracking down on piracy streaming sites like 123 Movies that profit off of ads on their site. With this concerning law being passed, I figured I'd take a look back at a funny Simpsons episode that mocked the US government's obsession with stopping piracy. The episode begins with Homer becoming nervous after hearing spoilers for the Radioactive Man movie at work. He tries his best to avoid spoilers, but people keep talking about them. At the start of the episode, there is a funny repeated gag. First, Homer gets bothered by Reverend Lovejoy talking about Radioactive Man spoilers at church. This leads to him being thrown out by 3 choir boys.
And stay out!
Following that, Homer decides to go to the movie theater to finally see the film for himself with his family before more gets spoiled for him. However, Homer gets mad after seeing an advertisement for Ask body spray, which leads to him being thrown out again, this time by the kids who are now theater ushers.
And stay out!
I find this gag very funny. It's very simplistic, yet I still laugh. The main plot of the episode picks up after Bart tells Homer there is a way to watch the Radioactive Man movie without going to the theater by illegally downloading it. Bart then shows Homer the site Bootleg Bay, which is a clear parody of the site Pirate Bay. Bart then tells Homer how to pirate, but then the announcer cuts in to say that the Fox network forbids the airing of piracy instructions. In the place of that scene is 2011 NASCAR race footage. I really like this recurring joke, especially since after that message, the footage plays again after Homer attempts to explain how easy piracy is. Homer then introduces Lenny and Carl to pirating by watching the James Bond film they were going to spoil for him. He then decides to show pirated movies to people in his neighborhood in his backyard. Homer screens a Judd Apatow movie and everyone has a fun time watching it. Marge believes that Homer had permission to screen the film, but he reveals that he illegally downloaded it. This leads to Marge mailing a letter with a check to a Hollywood producer. The producer snorts some coke with the check, and then notifies the FBI after reading the letter. This leads to a funny scene where a woman runs past several smaller rooms, focused on more serious crime, and into a giant room called Movie Piracy. This scene is very funny in that it mocks how the US government puts way too much funding into fighting movie piracy when they could put it towards more important things. This is just one of many funny visual gags. There are some funny posters on the walls, including one that has "Stop VHS Copying" and "DVD Ripping" crossed out, with the text "Internet Downloading" below it. This poster shows how the government's view on piracy has changed over time. There's also a poster that says "Say No to Torrents," but the funniest sight gag of the whole episode is definitely the FBI warning backdrop. I know me and a ton of people saw this growing up. Whether you watched it on a VHS or DVD, these warnings were a regular thing. Anyway, the FBI has the goal of capturing Homer Simpson after getting the letter from Marge. During a screening of Cosmic Wars Episode 7, the FBI shows up and raids the Simpsons' backyard. The head of the FBI says that Homer will go to prison and that a snitch gave them this intel. Marge is super nervous because she sent the letter, but Homer instead is suspicious of Superintendent Chalmers. Bart then tries to distract the FBI agents by playing the Cosmic Wars movie. This scene is really funny. In it, the FBI agents shield their eyes because the material is copyrighted. However, the head of the FBI shoots Homer's computer with a gun and arrests him. While he's getting taken away, Homer asks Marge who arrested him. Homer states that he wants Marge to find out who snitched on him, and whoever did it will feel a ton of guilt. He then ends up in a prison bus where he is asked what he is in for. Homer says he got arrested for movie piracy. All the prisoners are outraged and tell him that it is wrong to steal from Hollywood filmmakers. They all attempt to fight him, but the bus falls down. Homer then ends up on a train track, fearing death, but it goes on a different track. He then hops aboard. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa say that Homer didn't deserve prison for what he did. They both wonder who turned him in. Marge then feels nervous. Homer returns and says he doesn't want to go to jail. Lisa then reveals that Homer would be safe in a Swedish embassy building. They go to the embassy because the Swedish government have the belief that movies should be shared for free. However, the FBI get to the building. Homer then finds out Marge was the one who snitched and feels betrayed. He then turns himself in. Homer then ends up in court, and Judd Apatow, the creator whose film he screened illegally, argues that Homer is an enemy of art. Seth Rogen even has a cameo in this episode, since he is an actor who appears in Apatow's films. Homer is found guilty, but Marge says that he should tell his side of the story. Homer then does a speech about why he pirated and why he loves his wife that is so inspirational that it gets Hollywood directors and producers to beg for his film rights. He then sells his piracy story so that it can become a feature film and all his charges are dropped. Lisa wonders why the people in Hollywood who wanted to sue her father now want to make a movie about him. The head of the FBI has a very important answer to that question.
Hollywood may be run by big corporations trying to squash people, but they make movies about people standing up to big corporations trying to squash them.
Homer then says he will sign with the studio that will convince Channing Tatum to gain weight to play him. He then gets his wish. The episode ends with the neighborhood holding a surprise screening of the movie based on Homer's story. We are excited about the film and want to have a fun experience watching it with him. However, he shuts the screening down, with him now being against piracy since the movie ticket sales will benefit him. He also tells Marge to promote Ask Body Spray. Following the credits, the Simpsons then watch the film in an empty theater. Lisa then shares her opinions on how both people and companies are pirates in their own ways, and is about to talk bad about a company, but then the NASCAR clip plays. Overall, this episode is a very memorable modern Simpsons episode. It's a very interesting episode in that it tackles piracy. Personally, I think directors and actors should be compensated, and as someone going into the creative field, I can see why people are against piracy. But at the same time, I think the concept of the FBI going after pirates is going way too far. By that I mean individual downloaders. This has happened before, as the RIAA has sued people for large sums of money in the past for illegally downloading music. Thankfully, that trend stopped in 2008. I understand why people are worried about the Protecting Lawful Streaming Act being passed. There definitely was a lot of fear-mongering about it on YouTube. The truth is, though, that this bill is concerned with people who operate for-profit streaming sites and not YouTubers or Twitch streamers. Still, Tom Tillis is drafting another bill that might make Content ID stricter. That is very worrisome, as the content me and others make relies on fair use of copyrighted material. While I feel people are overreacting to the Protecting Lawful Streaming Act a bit too much, I can see why people are concerned. Copyright is already a nightmare on YouTube, and the addition of new legislation will inevitably make things worse. While this Simpsons episode isn't about fair use on the internet, I chose to review this episode because it is a great satire of the US government's obsession with stopping piracy. Because of legislation regarding piracy, Content ID has to exist. Anyway, if YouTube truly wants to crack down on illegal streaming, please stop these 24/7 Family Guy streams, as they obviously violate terms of service. I just find it unfair how reviews instantly get claimed, but these clearly pirated live streams with episodes of cartoons stay online for several months. YouTube, why aren't you doing anything about that? Anyway, this is a funny Simpsons episode, and I'm glad I revisited it. This has been ShadeX, and I hope you all feel nothing but good vibes.
LazyTown.